Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to our expert webinar today. So I'm really excited to have you all on board. So we're still seeing a few participants joining in. So let's wait for a minute. All right, then let's just get started with the webinar then. Hello everyone, welcome to our webinar today. My name is Rohia and I'm the marketing manager here at Unlock OKR. And today I'm delighted to be here with Dr. Jessica Brown. Dr. Jessica is an OKR coach and the AVP of Workforce Performance at Unlock OKR. She earned her doctorate in organizational and leadership development, and she's an absolutely skilled OKR coach. She has an extensive experience working with various organizations and leaders to build and deliver solutions that support the vision and mission of an organization. As a consultant, Jessica has also helped organizations by creating and delivering successful programs across a wide range of aspects, including strategic planning, leadership development, change management, and team building. As an OKR consultant, Jessica supports and helps organizations plan and align their OKRs. She also helps them gain commitment on the OKR framework by coaching them on OKRs and helping them develop these internal OKR champions. So Jessica has been the featured speaker at Unlock OKR series of expert webinars on introduction to OKRs, getting started with them and sustaining the framework. So welcome, Jessica. I'm just so excited to have the opportunity to have you here today to talk to everyone.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I'm excited to be here with all of you and continue to expand our OKR knowledge so that we can really deliver value to the organizations that we're part of. Wanted to give you a moment to say hello.
Yes. Also, the session will be recorded and I will be emailing the recording to everyone after the webinar takes place. So don't worry if you miss anything. And we'll be doing a Q&A session in the end. So feel free to drop all your questions in the questions panel. With that, I'm going to pass things to Jessica and she's going to take it from here. So stay tuned for this awesome presentation.
Thank you. So to make it easier, I just wanted to take a moment to connect with you by video and say hello so you can see my face and know that I am here and excited to be here. To make it easier, I will kind of move off video to get right to our presentation as I know why we're really here. So today we're here to talk about getting back on track with goal setting and what's next for us as businesses and leaders, especially as we continue to navigate all that we are dealing with over the last year and a half. So today we want to touch on four main things. We want to talk about the effects of what's happening with the environment of uncertainty and turbulence that's happening currently and how that impacts our organizations and the people that work for them. We also want to touch on how do we use OKRs or what about OKRs that OKRs brings that helps us get back on track and start to move towards what we unfortunately have kind of deemed normal, but getting back to that typical grind that we're a little more used to. The third is that we want to talk about how you as a leader or even a champion in an organization is a huge impact in creating that OKR culture and continuing to cultivate the environment and the focus that we want in our culture. And then the last one is just touching on those 4 superpowers that we know help organizations continue to stay the course and navigate through times of chaos and uncertainty and turbulence. So that's our goal for today and what we hope that you take out of this. So we know some aspects about the current environment, both globally as well as internally, no matter where we're coming to this webinar from. So we've had the COVID-19 breakout over 2020, which has completely thrown things for a loop. We've had, concepts of social injustice and racial equity come out in organizations and throughout the world and standing up for equality and equity. We still have a very heated political environment throughout the world. And because of all of these, specifically COVID-19, we've increased remote work and that social distancing, so we're not interacting as much. And so based on all this, chances are with your organization, your 2020 plans and strategic plans are out the window. And because they're out the window, our 2025 or our longer term strategic plans are now likely off track as well. And so when we're off track, we feel like we need to catch up in all of these aspects. So how does this turbulence and chaos and confusion really impact us? So first, it leads to that anxiety and confusion. If I'm not sure what's happening or where things are going or what the future holds, I'm consistently worrying, thinking about how do I plan to deal with whatever comes my way. And so when we're in this state of mind, we are stressed and our resources are likely depleted, especially on the energy and time realm. But as an organization, chances are after the last year and a half, our resources are also depleted financially as well as energy. And then the last couple, that lack of focus and clarity. When we don't know what's coming in the future, we're worried about where to go. Should we stay the course that we were on originally? Do we alter? How much do we alter? And who knows who's making those decisions? So there's a lot of unclarity and chasing after what might make us sustainable during times of chaos and turbulence. And so we start to have a lot of urgency to fix things and do things, but with little direction on the big impact or where that's working us towards in the future because we're reactive. And then if we're reactive, we tend to be more restrictive. So we've locked down on hiring or resources because we're not sure what the future holds, and therefore innovation is limited, and that impacts our growth as well. So during this kind of uncertain, turbulent time with all that's going on, a lot can be impacted. And so now that we're hoping to see the light at the end of the tunnel, how do we start to get our people back on track? Well, we found that the OKR methodology is being very, very helpful in that, in so many ways. But just to cover this, not being aware of too much knowledge on who's on the call, we just want to cover the OKR methodology, which is a strategic planning, but more importantly, management model that helps us get more execution after we've planned our strategy. Organizations, several very well-known organizations, as you can see here, are utilizing OKRs with benefits. Intel and Google were some of our founders of OKRs in the beginning, but we have Facebook, Dropbox, Uber, Amazon, so many organizations utilizing this framework. When we talk about an objective, we really want to focus on what and why. We want to make sure it provides very clear direction. What are we working on and why? We want to increase turnaround time to increase customer satisfaction. We want to create an inclusive plan to mitigate, sustainability, or to keep sustainability. So there's this what and why component, and the why brings this inspiration. If we are just working on the what, we aren't inspired and we aren't clear about why it matters now. When it comes to key results, we're measuring the success of that objective. So we want to think past tense, we want to think end of the cycle, we want to think what would we have in our hand at the end that we would be really excited about. And key results always contain some way of measuring, so they have a number. So why are these organizations still thriving in turbulent times and uncertain times? And how are they even more utilizing it to get and stay on track? The first reason is because OKRs brings transparency. So when people are confused and anxious, they want clarity, and people want to understand what's happening. Unfortunately, our typical response as leaders is to not necessarily readily share all that information, because we're afraid people might quit and abandon ship. We might have a mutiny. Who knows? But we're afraid it will get worse sometimes before better. So we don't always share the bad with the good. But what OKRs does is brings this component that if we have transparency, people trust us because we're being open, and they're very clear about where we're going and why and the direction. So if we have organizational OKRs set, people know where our ship is headed. And if we're sharing information regularly and transparently and openly, we're building that trust that they know we're going to be there for them. And so if we're clear on where we're going to have more transparency and therefore more progress that starts us towards getting back on track. The next concept that helps us get back on track that OKRs brings is inspiration. So we know if fear is taken care of and people have trust, the next step is actually getting them inspired and excited towards what our direction is. And we do that by helping them understand how they contribute to that big picture that we have for the organization, that vision, that mission, that long 5-year or even 1-year strategic goals that we're trying to achieve. And so if I have trust and I know where I contribute and that I matter, then I am bought in. And therefore, I'm more likely engaged, I'm more motivated, and I'm excited to be a part of this mission, vision, and I'm excited to contribute to it. And so if we have inspired and motivated people, we're going to achieve more because they know why it matters and they know how they play in their part. And so if we have people who trust us because of transparency and they're inspired, we've now doubled our likelihood of getting back on track and really regaining that momentum that we want to after this. The third aspect that OKRs brings to getting back on track is teamwork. OKRs is a team sport. It is not intended to be only everybody just right individual. It's intended to be including teams. So if we're looking at that, that's important. So if we have trust and we have inspired people because they're clear on how they contribute, then they can also be clear on how others contribute and therefore know how to support each other and how we are working. So we're able to collaborate more because we're clear on how everyone is playing their parts. And so if we're clear on how we're playing our parts and we're collaborating as a team, then we're all working in the same direction and rowing the boat in the same direction. And therefore, we're more powerful than we are individually. So when we have teamwork, we get more buy-in. People are part of the planning process. They're part of the execution process, and they feel ownership within it. There's more collaboration and communication. We have less siloing because we're making it very clear how two separate teams are actually contributing to the same big picture. And when we are all seeing how each other contribute to this big picture, we get that sense of unity where we're one for all and all for one. And so with more teamwork, we get that more collaboration and more communication, which again gets us to that prime goal of more achievement and progress towards our strategic objectives and future. And so the last aspect that we really believe OKRs brings to getting us back on track is the concept of agility. Now, this concept is used for IT in an agile framework at a more operational, tactical level, but it's also used as a descriptor in understanding one's ability to adapt and flex and how quickly and easily that can happen. And so if we think through again, as we're building, our employees now trust us because we're being transparent. We've now inspired them by relating their direct role to our inspirational future vision and organizational objectives. We've brought teams together because we've showed people how they individually contribute to a bigger team goal. So now we're working together towards a goal. We have that transparent information, and that alone helps us to be able to flex more readily and adapt. So if we're able to flex more readily, it's because we're getting more feedback and recognition because we're having more of that communication and collaboration. We're taking the time to reflect and look back and say, how far did we come? What challenges did we have? And more importantly, next, what lessons did we learn? So that we build in an iterative process of learning and improving so that we're consistently getting better in shorter spurts, quarter after quarter. And if we're better quarter after quarter and we're taking those shorter spurts to plan and execute, we have more speed and flexibility to adapt than if we set only a 1 year or a 5-year plan and try to execute it over the year. So if we have the ability to adjust and flex easily, we're able to stay on track to achieve those desired results. And so you can see how all 4 of these components start to really bring together why OKRs helps us start to get back on track. So now the question is, it sounds like OKRs could work for us because it does give us all those components. It does help us get on track. But as a leader or an OKR champion or coach, what's my role in creating that culture and making sure that we're picking up throughout the organization the habits and having the conversations that we want to be had. So first is that inclusion and buy-in during planning. It is the leader's role to make sure that we are doing planning as a team. Because if we're not, then we're not gaining the level of buy-in that we could have. Nor are we creating the alignment and conversation and habits of communication and collaboration that we want if we don't include our direct reports in this planning and we just plan for them. OKRs is not meant to be dictated down. It's meant to be very empowering for our people. It's our job as leaders to not only create and build, but sustain the momentum towards results. And we do that with our conversations, with our meetings, with our one-on-ones and monthly meetings, and making sure that we have a regular rhythm that we and drum that we're marching to as a team as well as an organization. And leaders play roles in keeping their team on track so that the organization can stay as a whole on track. It's also the role of the leader to set those expectations and make sure that we're providing the right support to our people when they do set ambitious objectives and key results. If we're encouraging our people to be inspirational and set stretch key results, then we have to be there to support them. And we have to be there to set expectations on what we expect out of them in the OKR process and participation. If we set those expectations, then we're able and provide that support. We're able to create this culture of contribution and accountability. So we're able to say, you set your goals this quarter. We agreed on them. Now, as a leader, it is okay for me. There's no reason why I shouldn't be holding you accountable to what you've agreed to work on. This doesn't mean if you don't reach your OKR 100%, you're in trouble. This means that you agreed and committed to make progress towards this big aspirational or piece that moves the organization into the future and improvement. The role of the leader is to drive that employee engagement, and we do that through that autonomy and empowerment, through including them in the planning process as a team, but also through letting them write their own OKRs and giving them a chance to bring them to us as leaders and align with us on whether they're in the right direction. But giving that trust that, one, I don't need a task list. I need agreement with you on what success looks like. If you as my direct report agree with me on what success looks like, I hired you because you're a quality in your role, and I've kept you because of it. So I trust you to do what you need to do. I trust you to write a project plan and bring it to me to have a conversation. I trust you to do all those tactical things because I've empowered you and I've given you the autonomy to do them in the way you know best. And we all know this one, meetings. Now that we're remote more than ever, we're consistently in these meetings. So it is important for us as leaders to make sure these meetings are most effective as possible so that we're maximizing the time we, as well as our people, have to execute on both the operational day-to-days we have going on, as well as the strategic aspects that move us forward. So these are some big keys in how leaders play roles in culture. So we realize that OKRs bring these great components to getting us back on track. And now as leaders, we know how we play in the game to help get there. Overall, one of the most important models that we use and have created to help people in getting there OKRs in working towards their OKR behaviors is working towards developing our 4 superpowers of OKR success. And these 4 superpowers help us get from strategy to execution, and they help us focus more on those outcomes instead of that task list of outputs. These 4 superpowers, the first one is focus. We need to be very clear on what our top priorities are, because if we're focused on everything, we all know we're focused on nothing. And so as a result, we work with clients, especially around the planning phase, to help them hone how to make sure that their organizations, and their teams are focused. The other superpower is this aspect of alignment, making sure that every level of the organization, from CEO to intern, is aligned and clear about their contribution to the big picture. So everyone knows their parts. We wouldn't put on a play without giving everyone their roles and making it very clear. And we do that here with OKRs as well. The third superpower is rhythm and orchestrating that battle rhythm that we mentioned. We want the whole organization marching to the same pace. If we were rowing a boat, we can't have the people in the front rowing faster than the people in the back, or vice versa. We want this steady rhythm of communication and collaboration and planning and executing that helps us stay on track and achieve consistent progress over time. And so this is one of the big pieces that most organizations are missing in that jump from strategy to execution. We mentioned before, we get a plan, we get excited, and we get some momentum, but eventually the day-to-day takes over. So how do we make sure the day-to-day doesn't take over? We gain that 4th superpower of agility. And this is where we're planning and executing and replanning and executing and shorter time spans than we were before, allowing us to adjust to environmental changes, allowing us to become very focused for a short period of time so that we can truly achieve the smaller milestones that get us to that bigger aspirational objective results, etc. So when we work with organizations or talk about organizations, we always hone these 4 superpowers, because we find all success with OKRs really falls into these areas. And we do that because John Doerr, and many of you have likely read or heard of Measure What Matters, but he said it best when he said, unlike traditional frozen set them and forget them business goals, OKRs are living, breathing organisms. So we're looking at them quarter to quarter. We're watching the progress week to week so that we can get that agility and eventually get that execution. So in summary, today we really talked about and recognized how uncertainty in these turbulent times have not only caused chaos and confusion, but they've also impacted the workforce and caused stress. And we're looking for ways to alleviate that stress and give that clarity to get us back on track. We realize that OKRs can be potentially a great fit for helping us get back on track because they help us get transparency and alignment. We learned that leaders are a huge role in making sure that organizations adopt OKRs and their teams adopt OKRs, because they set these expectations and support their teams as well as the change throughout the adoption and implementation. And lastly, we just talked about the 4 superpowers that we're always trying to improve upon. We're always trying to get better at being focused and prioritized. We're always trying to get better at aligning and making sure that every objective is covered and we're all working together versus having competing priorities. We're always working to gain that steady, consistent rhythm and pace. And then we're always working to be able to adapt whenever needed to in a very easy, comfortable fashion. So first, we want to extend the opportunity for anyone to ask any questions. I know I've been talking the majority of the time, so we wanted to give you an opportunity to ask any questions you may have. So we do have some questions from the audience. The first one is, appraisals are a stressful time for both the employee and the manager. How can OKR platforms change this? Great question. When we're talking about platforms in general, it's a little bit tricky because there is a wealth of platforms. Some do multiple facets and features, and some focus directly on OKRs. What I find happens with an OKR platform, we'll talk specifically about the OKR only platforms because other ones have specific pieces around performance management. But OKR platforms bring the ability to look back in time and record progress over the long haul. So we've all been in performance reviews or appraisals where the feedback doesn't quite seem fair. The perspective is only short term. The feedback is vague, etc. And so we don't always get to take it in, learn it. So what an OKR platform can do, and although we don't recommend OKRs be used for performance, these are meant to be aspirational, strategic level goals where you're not going to get fired if you don't reach 100% because we want you to be aspirational. What the platforms can do is provide context and a track over the year of all of the progress and contributions that the individual has made to the strategy and future of the organization, all of the things that they've done. And that gives a leader a more clear view and a more fair appraisal versus sitting down and trying to remember over the last 12 years all of the great successes or even challenges to give feedback. So hopefully that answers your question. Let me know if it does or does not. Question number 2, if I want to get started with OKRs right away, what should I do? First timers. If I were starting with OKRs for the first time, the first thing I would get is leadership involved and bought in, and the initial top few levels of the structure organized to understand who is going to play. So what's that top 3 tiers of the organization when it comes to OKRs, alignment, contribution? What's that going to look like? So I would identify that structure. We are we actually work with our clients in a guided fashion. So information is great, but what I'm sure all of you are realizing is you can take in all the information you want, but without that mentor, without that guide, without that coach, just like any sports or a leader would do when they're trying to improve, that external factor of someone who has guided people through it before really helps, because our approach is to role model and hand off. So we don't want to just give you the information. We want to show you and guide you through it and then hand it off to you in a fashion where you almost already feel comfortable because you've seen it done and experienced it. So that's where I would start. Structure. Should I set OKRs from the top to bottom or vice versa? Another great question. So OKRs are what I call a meet in the middle. OKRs are communicated and cascaded down in a communication fashion. So the organization has to know at the organizational level, specifically executive leadership, they have to know where they're pointing the organization if they expect anyone else to be able to align to them. So the top level leadership, ideally, whether you're, even if you're starting in a team, the top level leadership of that team, the leader and their direct reports, usually set that highest level of the highest level of OKRs. What we don't want you to do is set that high level of team OKRs or organizational level and divvy them out and assign them in a delegated fashion where you're just going to take this key result, you're just going to take this key result. What we want is that meet in the middle, where I say as a leader, we came together as a team and we plan these OKRs. So we're all in agreement this is where we should be focused for the quarter. Now you know your role. You go and you write your OKRs, looking at our team OKRs, and you tell me where your role plays and contributes and what that success looks like. You write your OKRs, and then you come to me as your leader and we align, and I course correct, so to speak, and say, are you on track? You know what? We don't need this to be a priority this quarter. Hey, it looks like we might be missing. This is going to be a big priority this quarter, etc. So we don't want that delegation. We want each individual to be writing their own objective, because as objectives get cascaded through the organization, the objective gets localized to your role. So it's what I'm doing and my role to contribute to this big team, and what I'm doing, my team's doing to contribute to this department, and the department to the organization. And so we want people internalizing and owning their OKRs, and they only do that typically or mostly when they write them and own them. So hopefully that gave you some insight. Wow, lots of questions. Great. Who should input and update the objectives in an OKR tool? Everyone doing OKRs. Our OKR tool is particularly built to start to funnel anything that is aligned. So everyone, ideally, who has OKRs should be logging in once a week on an agreed upon date to update all of their OKRs. And what this does is it makes an agreement when we're setting that expectation as a leader. It makes an agreement, I'm going to put that at this point in time, all of our key results and OKRs throughout the entire organization are completely up to date and real-time accurate data. So we call it a weekly check-in. We ask you, typically, depending on your organization, we always recommend the lovely Friday reflection, but we ask you take 10 minutes by close of business on Friday to update all of your key results. That way, all of us as an organization can log in Monday, look at our key results and where our direct reports are, where our teams are, where our organization is, whatever we need to look at, and plan our week accordingly, because we can see what's behind and who we need to touch with. OKRs, in my complete view, OKRs don't work without tracking. Most organizations start with something like an Excel spreadsheet or Smartsheets, and that works great. Some project management tools can be used, those work as well. But until you get a true OKR tool that understands the methodology, we still tend to miss pieces. And ours is built to do OKRs, but also customized to how your organization might need it. So moving on, we've got about 2 more questions. I want to be conscious of everyone's time. We got about 5 minutes. The next question is, can OKRs be used in a public services sector? Absolutely. Absolutely. It can be used in any organizational structure as long as we think through how that best works. And we do a lot of that. So traditionally, we really tend to recommend functional because it is very clear. Your organizational leadership team, your departments, your teams, your individuals. Sometimes we also have product teams or functional or product focus or service focused. And so it just depends on the organization and the structure. And then our last question is, how do you connect OKRs with individual performance evaluation? In the best of all, I would say you don't. You don't link actual individual OKRs and achievement of those with performance evaluations. Because again, if we ask you to set stretch goals and then base your raises, promotions, and job performance scores on that, what are you going to do? You're going to set the bar low. You're going to make sure you set it where you can achieve it. You're going to sandbag it. So what we say when it comes to performance is performance evaluation is on your engagement in the process of OKRs. Are you actually writing OKRs? Are you trying to achieve your OKRs? Are you participating in alignment sessions and team meetings, etc.? So it's more about the participation in our strategic management process, aka OKRs, instead of, if you don't achieve your OKRs, you're in trouble. And so I hope that answers all of the questions. You've been a wonderful audience today. I know we are at the time. Because you've been such a great audience today, we want to extend a special offer to you to take our free strategy to execution assessment. And this helps you look at your focus, alignment, rhythm, and agility, and start to help us identify where we can help you improve in those success and superpowers so that you get all of the value of OKRs, not just some. If you do decide to complete this strategy to execution assessment, we are going to give you a free 30-minute review with me, one-on-one, to discuss your organization and how OKRs can apply or is working in your organization and what we see in the assessment in reviewing the results. So we're offering this to you. We will send all the attendees an email to invite you to participate in the assessment. You are actually welcome to share this with more people on your team, because we know that focus and alignment and rhythm and agility come from more than just individuals. They come from a team atmosphere. And so we're able to actually give you even more expansive results and compile those results for you if you decide to share with other members to see how your organization is feeling on these 4 superpowers. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are excited to have you on and look forward to helping you and assisting you in any way. as we continue to share our knowledge and expertise on OKRs over the next couple months. We hope to see you on our next webinar.
Thank
Ria?
you so much, Jessica. This was really insightful. And thanks everyone for all those interesting questions. So hope you're all staying safe and protected. Let's meet in the next webinar. Thank you.
Bye-bye.